one of the top experts in the world on sales.
King of collaboration.
He's on the cutting edge, and what he does works.
Jim Padilla.
CEO of Gain the Edge.
He is the leader when it comes to sales and conversions.
A sales and business coach to some of the biggest names in the country.
Jim Padilla is known as the go-to guy for all things sales.
Welcome to the conversation, guys, from Make More Sales audience. And we are, the discussion today, we're going to have, it's to take a little bit of twist. It's not necessarily about sales, but then again, if you're a longtime listener here, everything is sales, and you know that. So everything we do is about leading other people to do things powerfully and effectively. And if possible, to do it without even having to talk, just based on how you are, who you show up with, and what kind of impact you make in the world. And I have with us today an expert in his own right. And everybody here, you know that we're all about the relationship piece. Relationship capital is everything, especially in business. I believe, and I steal this from Jay Fazette, a friend and colleague, and there's nothing wrong with prospecting for clients unless it comes at the expense of prospecting for partners. I spend all of my time focusing on partnerships and relationships and letting clients and sales come out of that, as opposed to the opposite. And not many people that I know embody that statement and that perspective more than Kevin Thompson. And he's a friend. We've been kind of keeping in contact over the last couple of years. We definitely have the same perspectives. He's been doing this at a pretty big scale for a very long time. Connected with a lot of the people that I'm connected with people that I want to be connected with, and just has a lot of relevance to this discussion. And so I wanted to. I'm going to give you the frame here. I'm going to read to you a post that he had on Facebook a few weeks back that I read and decided I want to talk. Let's have this conversation where other people can benefit. And so this was the post I'm going to read to you, and then we'll bring him on. He says, the rules have changed dramatically in 2020, and business relationships are important now more than ever. I'm not talking about casual surface level relationships. I'm talking about intimate, meaningful relationships. If you aren't actively engaged in forging valuable relationships around your business, you're at a serious disadvantage. Here's the $1 million question. How many people know you well enough, have enough firsthand knowledge of your business, your experience, your integrity, and your capabilities that they know how to be useful to you and how you can be useful to them? That's a powerful question. Let that land for a second. How many of the right people in the business world know, like, and trust you? How many of them do you know, like, and trust? How many of them actually know you, really know you, like you, and trust you? Capital, all caps, trust you. Because the most reliable and valuable asset you possess, other than your experience and integrity, is your network. When you're great at what you do, have a track record of getting great results for your clients, and have relationship capital with all the right people, the financial capital takes care of itself. What does your network look like right now at this minute? And when I read that, there was a lot of comments and posts on there, but I was like, that's a great conversation to have with a very interested audience. So Kevin Thompson, say hello.
Well, hello. Good to see you again, Jim. And, that's some, it's like, wow, I'm listening to you read that is a whole different experience than writing that. So
yeah,
thank you.
This is an interesting topic for me because I believe in it. I live it wholeheartedly. One of our main themes is there's nothing wrong with prospecting for clients unless it comes at the expense of prospecting for partnerships. I say often, clients will feed you today, partnerships will feed you for a lifetime. And that's everything you said in that post is the undergirding of the statement that I just said. Yeah. And I think people don't really understand. Everybody thinks they have relationships, but one of the key things we teach is building intentional relationships on purpose with intention. And I think most people don't do that. They stumble into relationships, or they try to take advantage of an opportunity where a relationship exists. But how do people really build meaningful relationships? without
Yeah.
bringing a expectation to the process.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And you focus on the relationship first, and not with the intention of what can I get out of this relationship, but what can I contribute to this relationship. When we focus on the relationships, and how we can contribute, how we can help, how we can serve others first, I'll tell you, when we show up that way, we get so much cooperation and help in return from others. We get to be both on the giving and the receiving end of the equation as well. And so that's been huge in my life over the years. And I'll tell you, with everything that's going on right now, Jim, uh, we need to be focusing on relationships. We
Right.
need to be focusing on that. Yeah.
It's interesting because, we something, a philosophy that we build in, and I kind of coined this term several years ago. Everybody talks about the win-win, or win-win-win. And I get it in concept, but when I started analyzing it, I thought, well, win-win implies equality, and no two people are equal. Everybody's got different strengths, different things to bring to the table. If we have a win-win, then I mean, if it's an equal partnership, that means somebody's holding something back so it can be equal. And what I've done, just to be able to get my mind around it, is we've coined the phrase win them. So it's a win them scenario, which means we show up to ensure they win. And so if I show up with nothing but an intention of you winning, then I'm not measuring it, I'm not tracking it, I'm just all in for you to win, with the full understanding and implication that you're doing the same thing. Then
I
it doesn't,
love that.
if I have more to give to you today, then so be it. And if you have more to give to me today, then so be it. But the goal, some simple transaction for that could be like, hey, I sent you 3 referrals last month. Where's my referrals? That's not,
Mhm.
that's more speaks to win-win. Win them is, hey man, I sent you 3 referrals last month. How are they? How did they
Yeah.
go? How are they doing? And when right now, the only time that part gets hindered is in an environment like what 2020 presented for a lot of people, where all of a sudden people started focusing more on taking care of themselves instead of taking care of others. And
Mhm.
I much prefer to show up and, you know what, hey, I know things may be on fire a little bit, but I'm going to help you put out your fires, and I know that someone else is going to help me put out mine.
Yeah.
And I think it's vital in a place where things are uncertain.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. That is such a great analogy, because I do look for, the win-win, but um, helping. I've always been this giver, and so many people that I am around that's who they are. They are just giving, generous, lead with a helping hand people of integrity. And for the most part, at least in my experience, that's how entrepreneurs are.
Right.
They are just at the core of who they are. They are just this giving, generous person. If anything, the big challenge that a lot of people have is receiving, and really being open to that too. And like you said, Jim, not that it has to come from this person that we're talking with right here, right now, but by us just showing up this way, to just give, to help, to serve, that we are in turn going to just be able to get everything that we need as well, even if it's not from the person we're talking with right now. And huge distinction. Yeah.
I think it's fascinating because the more I look at it, and the more our personal experience has been, it's almost never from the person that I'm helping immediately. Like if I'm doing
Mhm.
something for you, because of who you are, you're going to want to do something for me in return. But I find that often that just comes down the road, or it may not come at all. But by helping you, then all of a sudden, I'm giving something to you and I'm supporting you for you to win. And then Lee Richter calls and introduces me to a 5-star client or something. It's like, it had nothing to do with you. It had nothing to do with what I did for you. It's just, that's the dynamic that you're creating in the world.
Yes, it's how we show up. How we
Right.
show up.
Totally.
Exactly. Yeah.
So how would you define specifically relationship capital?
For me, so here's the thing, and I discovered this a long time ago, when with I became close friends with Bill Harris, who's the founder of Centerpoint Research Institute before he passed away. And I got introduced to him by a mutual friend. And Bill had been a longtime hero of mine. I mean, I had been at big events where he spoke. I had invested in his marketing materials. What I learned from him had a big impact on my business. And I can remember this day. And I remember when I was on the phone with Bill Harris, and quite honestly, I'm like, holy shit, I'm talking with Bill Harris. Who knows? Maybe he was feeling the same thing. Wow, I'm talking with Kevin Thompson. I don't know. But, because we were connected through a mutual friend, which opened the door for this conversation, and Bill and I just got a chance to get to know each other a little bit. And I let him know. I was like, Bill, I have been to events that you've spoken at. I've invested in some of your marketing materials. You have had such a profound impact on my life and on my business. And I just wanted to thank you for that. And just the act of sharing that with him, it just set the tone for that whole conversation. And I was kind of in a little bit of like, wow, I'm talking with Bill Harris, but I just wanted to acknowledge him because I know he didn't know that. And through doing that and just being genuinely appreciative of him, he was just like, well, wow, Kev, thanks so much. And it just really, that was how our relationship began. And that conversation, we got to know each other a little bit. He just started asking a little bit about what I do. And as a result of that, he was like, well, Kevin, you know what, man, I just really appreciate what you shared. And he said, what's cool is like the stuff that you teach is the same exact stuff that I used to build Centerpoint Research. And he's like, we need to get you in front of my people. And he's like, I know if you were to share with my people, you would provide so much value for them and you would make me look good. And so we ended up scheduling time to do that for a couple months down the road. And he was like, Kevin, he said, maybe you can help me too. What I'd like to do is I'd like to send you a copy of my HoloSync product. And I'd like you to try that out. And if you find value in that, if it turns out being valuable for you, then maybe you'd like to share that with some people in your life as well. And I was like, man, okay, yeah, perfect. I'd love to. And I was like, man, I'd love to try that out. And so I'm thinking, you know what? I was like, Bill, I was like, how big is your audience? And, he had a good size email list. And I don't remember the exact number of people that he had on his email list, but I know that it was, I want to say it was somewhere around 800,000 or 900,000 people that he had on his email list. And I was like, And he's like, well, Kevin, how big is your audience? And at that time, my audience was about 18,000. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, this is going to be really an unequal thing, kind of like what you were just talking, Jim, about, that we want to create an equal. And I was like, this is going to be really lopsided. And I'm not going to be able to help Bill nearly as much as he might be in a position to help me. And he was so gracious about that. And he didn't care. He did not care. And when Bill and I did that project, and that would have been in March of 2007 that we did that, I realized the power of having a relationship, because when he sent a single email to his audience and we did a training online for them, and when it was all said and done, we had produced 184,000 in revenue in 24 hours. And I had never had an experience like that in my life before.
Right.
And I was just like, wow. And, Bill and I became good friends as a result of that. We partnered on many more things after that. I was able to make a few key connections for Bill as well, which was kind of cool, because I perceive Bill. I kind of put like Bill on this pedestal where like here's he up here. He's had way more business experience than I have, and I'm down here somewhere. And it was really cool to find out that I could help Bill too. And like you mentioned before, there was no keeping score or anything like that, or I've done this much for you and you haven't. There was no
Right.
conversation about that. It was just two guys who got to know each other, who had all this appreciation for what each of us, for our skill sets, for our abilities, for our unique talents, all of that kind of stuff, that we just became friends, and just whatever either one of us could do to help each other, then we were just both in. So,
It's interesting because I see so many people who, probably the biggest, the easiest definition of any kind of partnerships in our industry is, JV partnerships or affiliate relationships. And so many times those it lends itself to more of the equal, like, okay, in that case, Bill would have said, hey, no problem. I'll email to 18,000 of my list because you have 18,000 on yours. And most people would be like, okay, that's fair. That's reasonable. I see people do that a lot. Like, oh, I'll email to 5% of my list or this. It's like, well, if you believe what I'm doing and you believe it's actually of benefit and value to the people you serve, which is the only reason you should share with me with your audience. If you believe that, why would you only believe that for 18% of your audience? Right. So if you believe in this possibility, then you should want it for all the people that you serve.
Yeah.
And, what are the things that get in the way of people having real relationships? What kind of walls, barriers, resistance, intentional or unintentional, that people put up? What do you see?
I think the one of the biggest things is that we are too concerned about what other people think of us or what they might think of us. And I've been guilty, totally. I've totally been guilty of, not sharing where I'm really at right here, right now, and what I would most need help with, because I would be concerned, like, oh, they would think if I shared that, they would think that I don't have my act together. And I can tell you, well, I mean, Bill is an example, and like I've got many people in my life who I used to put on this pedestal because they had businesses much bigger than mine, or they'd accomplished so much more in their career as an entrepreneur or CEO than I have in my own life, at least in my perception. And so I would mistakenly think, oh, well, man, it sure must be nice being them. They've got their act all together. And yet through having one-on-one conversations with so many of these entrepreneurs over the years, that I've had all this respect and admiration and appreciation for, you know what? Yes, they do have some amazing skill sets. They have developed things in their life, in their career, and they're brilliant at what they do. But they also have very real challenges, problems that they're dealing with as well. And when I really start having conversations with people, like real conversations, not surface level BS stuff, where when somebody asks, how's everything going? And you're like, oh, everything's great. Let me tell you how great everything is, right. Or being a part of these groups where the focus is on best practices, which then kind of leaves, when the conversation revolves around that, and there's nothing wrong with that, but if that's where the conversation revolves, it doesn't make you feel the most comfortable in sharing, well, okay, yeah, I've got some best practices, but you know what? I could really use help with this right now, but this doesn't seem like the right time or place for me to be sharing that, so I'm not gonna. And so that's, it's because of that fear of what people might think, or that it's not the right time or place, that really stifles us from making deep, meaningful relationships with people.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I think we've all been fall prey to that. And some groups are even more different than others on that. I've been part of many different, Bible studies and men's groups. And, we just moved from California to Nashville, so I'm starting some new groups. But I was part of a Bible study group that we met every Friday for 8 years. And about eight guys as a core, and we've had other guys come and go. And there are some guys that will hang out for a year before they ever say anything meaningful, because they want to feel like they're part of it. They watch, they witness, they offer some surface level stuff. And then, what we call the F word, we'll be like, hey, what can we pray for you? Or how is your struggles? Or, oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. I think, that is our F word around here. It's like, you're not fine. Nobody's fine.
That's right. That's right.
We all got stuff. And the better you're able to share that stuff, the more people can help, because we all want to help and we all resonate because we've all been there, or we are there, or we're about to be there. And, when we can get to that place, because it's hard. Everybody, it's interesting for an industry, our coaching transformation space that we're in, everybody's so focused on being authentic and transparent and all of that. And it's like, most of the conversation that I see isn't. Now, there might be in the one-on-one space, but not in the group. The group people aren't going, hey, I'm feeling really weak and vulnerable right now. They might say, hey, did anybody know a good marketer or a good Facebook guy or something? But it's not, here's something that's really scaring me and I don't know how to solve it.
Yeah.
I don't hear that stuff very often.
It's interesting, Jim, because, if you were to, put a group together and say, hey, we're going to put this group together and it's going to be all about being vulnerable, and you're gonna, we're all gonna share openly about whatever we most need help with, and you know what, you ain't gonna get nobody joining you. Right. But yet I have found when you provide that kind of a space for people, I mean, I did this event at my home back in August of 2017. I had 15 entrepreneurs flying from across the country, and right here in my home, on the other side of this wall in my living room. And that first morning, when everybody got here, I kind of opened up the 2-day experience by just telling everybody, I was like, you know what? I want to welcome all of you here, and I just want to share a little bit about who is in this room, because all 15 of you are absolutely amazing entrepreneurs. You've done amazing things in your career. You've got a long track record. You've got years of expertise, of experience, of resources, of connections. You have skill sets that are top notch, world class. But on the other side of the coin, you are also some of the most giving, generous, lead with a helping hand people on the planet. And so I want to let you know that over the course of the next 2 days, our focus is not going to be on best practices. Now, we will discuss some of that, but our focus is going to be on getting you exactly what you need for being here. And in order to accomplish that, I want to let you know that, whatever you share here, it stays here. And whatever you share, you are not going to be met with judgment from anybody in this room. And in fact, you're going to be met with nothing but open arms from like-minded people who, if they were able to help you, they would want to do that. And that is what entrepreneurs love doing. We love solving problems.
Right.
And it took 2 people sharing. The second guy, where he opened up and shared some pretty intimate stuff about his life, about his relationship with his wife, about some of the stuff, great things going on in his business, but stuff that he was really having a challenge with too. And as soon as he shared, he gave everybody else permission to then share too. And in fact, later on that second day, the guy who went first, he came back, he's like, hey, can I share again? I want, and now I've had a little bit different experience here. And see, and when you give people permission to do that and let them know that it's okay to take your armor off. It's okay to just leave your pride and ego at the door. We know you're good at what you do, but let's focus on getting you what you really need most. And, when you can provide a space like that, I've been doing this ever since, and it is an amazing experience to be able to provide a space for entrepreneurs and CEOs that I just have so much respect, so much admiration for, and to be able to see the conversations, the real conversations that come from that. and the friendships that get created. Because I know, what you shared about your Bible study, that's when you make real connection. That's when you make real relationships. That's when when somebody shares something like that, you don't think anything less of them. And in fact, you think more of them because they had the courage to share.
Right. Right. I think it's interesting because I think most people think we're already good at that. And I work on it. I work very intentionally on it. And I know that I'm always trying to get better at it. What would you say are some of the keys to be able to create a space that allows for, real sharing and vulnerability?
For me, so I'm going to go back to that first event again. That first event, I had invited these entrepreneurs that I knew. And I mean, for one, I was kind of like, I was really humbled by the response that I got from some of these people that were like, man, Kev, you're going to put that on? I'm coming to it. And I was just like, wow, they are investing of their time, of their resources, of their finances in order to come here. And I honestly, it was kind of another a Bill Harris experience. I'm like, that morning in my living room, I'm looking at who's here going, wow, look who's in my living room. And through the course of that couple days, all these amazing conversations took place. And yet I was kind of feeling throughout that process that like, man, Kevin, you don't have a whole lot to contribute. Because the reality was, Jim, is many of these entrepreneurs, like I said, they had businesses much bigger than mine. I didn't have experience running companies of the size that some of these entrepreneurs had. And so therefore, the conversations that were taking place, in most cases, I didn't have a lot to contribute. I wasn't saying much. And on the second day after lunch, when we came back to the living room and I started apologizing for this and saying that like, wow, I thought I would be able to contribute more. And like, I'm sorry that I wasn't able to contribute. And one of the guys was like, Kev, are you kidding me? You are the one who invited every one of us here. You're the one that opened your home to us. You're the one that provided the space. You were the biggest contributor of all. And for me, and it's taken me a while to really figure this out, that for me in hosting stuff like this, Jim, it's not about me talking. It's not about me sharing my experience. Sometimes it is, but most of the time it's just me being quiet and being present and listening to everybody else, holding that space for everybody else so that they can have the conversation. And I look back in my life over all the one-on-one conversations that I've had with so many entrepreneurs over the years, where that's where it was like then too, is I was listening. And so because that person that I was talking with felt heard, they felt like they were being seen, they shared so many things with me, things that like sometimes like I remember entrepreneurs telling me, man, Kevin, I can't believe I just shared that with you. My own wife doesn't even know that about me. And the reason people share is because like when I would ask what seemed to be like casual questions, hey, what are you working on? What's the biggest thing you could most use help with right now? And then you just listen to them. And not with the intention of like, I want to contribute back, or I'm just waiting for my turn to speak, especially if I'm in a sales situation. I'm asking you these questions, but I have an agenda and like, oh, let me look. Okay, this is how this conversation's, because I got my note, my scripted sales presentation here. But we just ask questions because we're genuinely curious. We want to know, we want to hear that person out. We want to get to know them better. And doing that, that's how I've been able to make all these just amazingly valuable connections over the years and stuff. And like, so when I finally figured out that like, wow, you don't have to be the guy contributing to sharing your expertise and experience when you feel like in comparison you can't. It's like this whole thing of like, we feel if we can't measure up, or we put somebody on a pedestal, or that like maybe, oh, I don't have enough to value to offer, or whatever that is, it makes us feel bad. Versus if we just have a conversation and let someone talk and let them be heard, let them be seen, that's the most valuable gift we can give somebody.
Right. Yeah. I have a concept that I teach called the pacers, chasers, and racers. And I think all of us, everybody should have them in all areas of our life, and a pacer is somebody who's setting the pace for you, right? A chaser is somebody who's chasing you, and a racer is someone running alongside of you. And whatever, whether it's in business or in, if you're raising kids, same thing. You should have a peer group of people who are raising kids, people who are further than you, people who you're helping, and people who are trying to solve the same problems you're solving. And I think it's easy for people to get running mates, and it's easy to get people to chase them. We all want to feel flattered and honored. But how do you find people that can pace you? How do you find people who will, like punching up, or someone who's got a bigger business than you by any factor, 10x, 1x, whatever it is? I think that's one of the biggest areas that people struggle with. Is, everybody listening, I know they're always thinking that, how do I be relevant to somebody who doesn't seem like I would be relevant to?
Yeah. I'll tell you, I have got people in my life who are those people who I used to put on this pedestal, that, wow, look at all the experience they've had, look at all they've done, look at all that they've achieved in their lives. Man, they are already really well connected. They've got so many things on the ball for them. I could not possibly have value to offer them. And having these conversations with people has allowed me to realize that, I don't worry anymore about, do I have value to offer somebody? I'm just going to have that conversation and get to know them and make a connection with them. And then if I am able to help them or provide value to them in some way, which is usually through making some kind of introduction based on what they share with me, but if I'm able to do that, great. And if I'm not able to do that, that is totally cool too, because I just got to have a meaningful conversation with somebody. And so I just focus on having the conversations. And I don't worry about, and I don't put a stipulation on that I want a certain outcome or that I want any outcome other than let's just have the conversation and just leave it at that. And like, that takes such a weight off your shoulders. That is such a freeing thing when you can just like let all that other stuff go and just have a conversation for no other reason than I just want to get to know this person.
Yeah. And I find that it's interesting. I'm noticing that I've said, that's been a segue for me today. I got to get rid of that. Anyway, I think I have like a delusional sense of myself. I feel like I have value to contribute to everybody, no matter where they are. And so I act as if, and I've done that for most of my life. A specific example, when I was in mortgage, I remember when I first started doing mortgage loans back in 2000, and I decided I was going to go find me a really small loan with somebody who would probably be an uneducated homeowner who couldn't ask me questions that I couldn't answer. Okay. And so I did a $94,000 mortgage. At the same exact week, my friend Cliff in my office, he did a $1.2 million refi. Both of them closed on the same day. I made $4,000. He made $34,000 from the commission. And it wasn't about the money. It was about the awareness that we're doing the same work. We're both providing the same sort of expertise. I just chose to provide it to somebody who couldn't question me. He went and did it with movie stars. And so I went out and I found a contractor. I said, I got to find ways to get that. I found a guy who was a custom home builder. He built like 4 homes a year at the time. And he'd forgotten more about mortgage than I've ever known. But he was a licensed realtor. He could do his own loans. He just didn't want to. He just wanted to build homes. And so I just assured him and said, look, I don't know all this other stuff. I have all the resources in my company, in my office, I have 250 years worth of experience in my team. Anything you need, I can get. And I make sure that you can, we'll walk you to the front of the line. You'll skip all the red tape. He goes, you do all of that, and I'll even give you this experience. I'll tell you how to package the loan. I don't even need your expertise. I just need you to do it, and don't ever lie to me. That was the only stipulation. Right.
Yeah.
And over the next 4 years and multiple introductions, we did dozens of loans together and other projects and introductions to other things. But it was just me being honest.
Yep.
I wasn't some big shot. I was just the guy who wanted to help. And what do you need? And how do I help? And it was great. And every we can all be doing that. All of us.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
So, it's hard to take it away from financial because, that's the measurement of business, right? What do you earn? How are you making? But when building a network, a relationship network, how do you place a value on it? How do you determine what is my network worth to me?
For me, it's really, at the end of the day, it's like, how many conversations am I having? So this is really interesting because I think in my whole business career, I've been on maybe 20 podcasts, and yet you're the second one today. And I'm finding that more people are inviting me to be on their podcasts, more now than ever. And it's like, it's not something that I've pursued, but it's, I look at like the conversation that you and I are having right now. I look at this and I'm like, I really hope that somebody else benefits from hearing what we're sharing here right now. And for me, I think my measure, money is definitely a way that I know with what Jules and I do in Tribe for Leaders, that is, how much revenue gets added to our members' business is the metric we look at to see how effective we are at what we're doing. But really, it's the conversations that we facilitate.
Right.
And the revenue comes as a byproduct of that. And for me, the more conversations that I have, just like this one, whether it's on a podcast, whether it's on I've got 2 other one-on-one conversations I have on the calendar for my day today. And I am really looking forward to those 2 one-on-one conversations. They're people that I don't know, that I've never met yet. I know a little bit about them from doing some research, but they were introduced to me by other people in my life. And I am really excited to have the conversations with those 2 people today as well. And for me, that's kind of, there's not a day during my work week that I don't have conversations scheduled with people. It's every single day. And that is what and so my work is having conversations. So the more conversations I have, the more impact I feel that I'm making. Whether anything financially comes from that or not is irrelevant. Those conversations feed me regardless. And hopefully they're going to feed either that other person that I'm talking to, or in this case, I hope it feeds people that will have the opportunity to hear what we talk about today.
Absolutely. I'm exactly the same way. We obviously market our business and all of that, but the majority of the value contribution to our business and revenue and everything else comes from me just building relationships and partnerships. My calendar, I have appointments and conversations with people every day from people who were put there by somebody else. People like, hey, you got to talk to Jim. You need to talk to Jim. Or there's always those internet, introductions and relationships and connections made. And it's just every time it is, I get it's been happening for 6 years in this business. And I'm always like surprised every single time. Wow, there's another person who wants me to talk to another person. It's cool. It's rewarding. It's like, okay, I'm obviously saying or doing something right to impact people in some way for them to want to share other people with me. Mm-hmm. And, the revenue just comes out of it. I think the revenue is a byproduct of all of that. And, I'm in several different masterminds. It's kind of how I make my living. And there's some that are purely transaction based, like, hey, this is a JV mastermind. We're all going to promote each other's launches, et cetera. And that's great. It's really not as rewarding. But the
Sure.
ones where it's just we're building relationships, and then out of the relationship, we get to build a relationship, and then 9 months later, you're doing a launch or you're doing an event. And I just believe in you so much that I want to support your event.
Yeah.
As opposed to, hey, who's got a list of this and who's got an open spot on their calendar? It's part of the responsibility of doing business, but that's not the fun part. That's not the rewarding part. And that's not where the biggest impact is made.
Exactly. Yeah. And when it is, I don't fault anybody, but if it's all about the money, if it's all about the transaction, my experience has been that I just like it when it's more of the focus on, like, how can we use our gifts and our talents and our skill sets to serve others, and just knowing that through that, the money will be taken care of. And that's been my experience too. That post that you mentioned that I wrote is, when people just know you for who you are, for what your skill sets are, and more importantly, they know what your character is. More than your reputation, your character, who you are as a person. That's what makes them want to tell other people about you. That what makes them refer you. With our community, we launched it with, by inviting people that I knew personally, who I thought would be a great fit for this, that they would have, plenty to contribute, that they would in turn get what they need in return as well. And now, it's kind of, once people start having that experience, they just want to share it with others because they're gaining so much from it. They tell other people, and they're not because I'm just going like, hey, will you refer us to other people? They're doing it on their own accord because they're having such a great experience. And they think about, oh, you know what? This person would be great in this community because they too would have a lot to contribute and they would get a lot in return. In fact, just last Friday, I had a conversation with gentlemen. We had scheduled the call for an hour. We ended up talking for 2.5 hours. And an hour and a half into the conversation, we hadn't talked about business at all. And in fact, an hour and a half in the conversation, I commented to him, I said, you know what? I was like, I still don't know what it is that you even do, but I've got a whole really good idea of who you are as a person. And I absolutely love that. And the fact that you were introduced to me by somebody else that I know really well, because he was telling me, he's like, yeah, I'd like to be in the community and all that. I don't even know what the heck you do. And I know you would be a perfect fit for this community.
Right.
But we spent the next hour and he kind of walked me through what he does. But it's like, I want to know who you are as a person. That is far more valuable to me than what you do. And when people know who we are as a person, and then they also know that we have this skill set or that we have this unique ability, as Dan Sullivan says, or what have you. They know what we can do, but it's who we are that really makes people want to tell other people about us. That's what draws business to us and all that, far more than our actual skill sets.
Definitely. If you just, you mentioned, and I saw you had a post just, I think it was today, about the character versus reputation. Give me a minute on that at a level that a third grader can understand. What does that really mean to people?
That was such an epiphany to me, because for years when my buddy Tony put this post up yesterday, just a short little brief post about reputation versus character. And for years, I have been focused on building a solid reputation for myself. of just treating people well, of treating my partners well, of doing what I say I'm going to do, and all that, because I wanted people, if my name came up in conversation somewhere when I wasn't there, I wanted them saying good things about me. I wanted saying Kevin's a good guy. Kevin does what he says he's going to do. He's true to his word. He treats his partners well. All of that kind of stuff. And I have been intentionally done stuff to create that reputation over the years. And yet, when I saw Tony's post, I'm like, you know what? This isn't about creating a reputation at all. This is about our character. And like, I know who I am as a person. And so now this whole idea of trying to create a reputation is like that whole weight is gone. We don't have to create a reputation for ourselves at all. We just need to be who we are. And if we know that we are a person of character, that's all we need to know. And if we are in alignment with who we are and that feels right by us, just go out there and do our thing. We're going to attract the right people to us, the right opportunities. All of that's just going to show up.
Right. I feel like that, when the core banner in our business is, it's not what you're saying, but who you're being, that drives the needle the most. And yeah, that impacts everything else. If you are being the right person, then you will have the reputation that supports it, right? You'll have the network that elevates it. You'll become, as I call a green button friend. I have a friend named Cervantes Edwards, and we've been friends for 25 years now, more than that. We reffed high school basketball and baseball years ago together and just have been coaching and doing stuff all forever. And he has this thing about him. He's a super talented guy. There's nothing I can do that he can't do. And every time he talks to me, he makes me feel like I am the most special, smartest, talented guy. He always calls, and when we ask me for an opinion, he makes it feel like my opinion actually matters. So he calls, hey, Jim, I was going to be doing this in this tournament this weekend. What do you think? You think this will work? What do you think, coach? And so he's created this dynamic in us that I call him, he's basically my green button friend. If he calls and if I can, I always hit the green button and not the red. I don't even know what it doesn't matter. It's just, unless I'm if he called right now, I couldn't because I'm here, but I'd call him back. But how many green button friends are in your world, and how many people are you a green button friend for?
That's so, I always, like, when I'm having a conversation, so we can get into this kind of like broad kind of stuff. But what you just talked about, Jim, I want to, give people some like just real meat and potatoes, like action things they can do, because yeah, you're right. We have all these contacts in our phone, people that we know, and like what you just referred to, green button friends, that if this call comes in from them, then I'm taking it. And so I want to challenge people. You have these contacts, these people that that you have them right there in your phone at your fingertips. I want to challenge you in the next 24 hours, send 10 messages out to 10 of those people. And in those messages, do nothing more than send them a text message or whatever, and let them know one thing that you genuinely appreciate about them. Nothing more than that. Don't ask for anything in return. Don't even ask for a response. Just send out some love and let them know one thing that you genuinely appreciate about them, and watch what happens over the next 24 hours. Watch what happens. And you might rekindle a friendship that has, maybe been on the rocks. You're gonna have such an amazing experience. Not only you, but so are they. And what I would like to see come from this is that you do that on a regular basis through whatever form that takes, whether it's text message, whether it's, messaging on social media to somebody. I use Facebook Messenger a lot. And what I love about Facebook Messenger, and even, I do a lot of times voice messages, quick little voice messages, a minute or less, because I want somebody to hear my voice, not just text them, And but make this a regular habit in your life, because like I mentioned earlier, there's not a person on the face of this earth that gets enough appreciation. And if you know, my buddy Jesse terms this active appreciation. When you actively appreciate other people on a regular basis, you know, and like 10 people in a 24 hours period, that's, you know, that, I mean, I don't normally message 10 people a day, but I want you to just have this experience. I want you to condense this so that you have the experience, so that then from there going forward, you're going to be like, okay, I'm going to make this a regular part of my day. I'm going to do this once or twice or 3 times a day or whatever, but have that experience, and you're going to want to continue to do that a whole lot more. So.
Amen. Amen. I highly recommend that. I like that. I'm actually going to do that myself. I do have on my calendar that I spend 4 hours every single week working on just relationships. So like literally it's on my calendar as relationship time. And in that time, I'll do things like that, or I'll search them up on Facebook and see what things are they important about, how can I acknowledge them? And just, you know, who needs a thank you, who needs a pick me up, who needs to be acknowledged. You know, I've done things like if, you know, I found out, you know, my friend Matt Browning wrote a book and he was excited. It just came out. I ordered it, I read it, and then I went on Facebook Live and I read a chapter and I talked about it and I gave, you know, and I summarized it and I told people to go buy it. It wasn't about, hey, I need an affiliate link. Hey, whatever. It was just, I want him to know that I value him. And I wanted other people to know that he has value. And so I introduced him to my community like that. And it was all unprompted. It was just like for the moment kind of thing. Yep. But that's what happens when you appreciate other people.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you create green button friends.
Yeah. And, you know, and like we were talking about, you know, most of, you know, entrepreneurs, at least like in my world, you know, we are just this giving, generous, lead with a helping hand kind of person. That's just who we are at the core of who we are. And, you know, like I said, they you know, a lot of times our challenge, myself included, and it's a continual work in progress for me, is opening myself up to receiving. I mean, even simple little stuff, you know, like somebody, I was having a conversation on the podcast that I was on earlier today, and before we started recording, the guy was, I was commenting that because my daughter's getting ready to have a baby next month, and I'm going to become a grandfather for the 6th time. And he was like, are you kidding me, Kevin? You don't look old enough to be a grandfather 6 times over. And I'm like, well, thank you very much. I'm going to graciously accept that compliment. Yeah. And you know, to just even something so simple as that, to just thank you and I appreciate you and I'm going to accept that. And especially when it comes to bigger things where people want to do something for us where we place more value, or God forbid that we reach out to people in our life and let them know if we need help with something. We don't do that because we don't want to bother people. We don't want to inconvenience them, whatever that is. Most of us really suck when it comes to receiving. And we need to open ourselves up more to that too, especially if we know in our heart, we know that part of our character is that we are just this giving, generous, helpful person. We need to open up for receiving as well, because when we give to others who genuinely and really appreciate it, that makes us feel so good. But yet when we deprive others from doing for us, we're depriving them from having that same experience. Exactly. And so, you know, Jim, I'm just going to go on a wing here. There's this 10-minute video. It's on YouTube. I can get you the link. Okay. It's a presentation I did for Joe Polish's Genius Network on why it's not better to give than to receive. And I'll get you the link if you want to share it with folks. There's just simple 10-minute talk on, and with the whole goal being that we're going to move you a whole lot closer on the 1 to 10 scale. We're going to move you a whole lot closer to that 10 when it comes to you being able to openly receive from others as well.
Yeah, that's great. That'll be if you're listening on the podcast, that'll be in the show notes. If you're watching on YouTube, same thing. Look down, we'll have it there so that you can check that out. Really valuable. Great way to get connected with Kevin as well. Where else can we send them? What's the best place for them to be able to reach out and say hello to you?
So you can easily follow me on Facebook. I'm always hesitant to, you know, we have a website, tribeforleaders.com. for our TFL community. If you go there, that is for a very specific kind of entrepreneur and CEO. It's not a group that we actively promote. It's kind of very by invitation only and stuff. But if what you see there, if it resonates with you, then by all means, you're welcome to go and schedule a time on our calendar and stuff. If not, that's totally cool too. But yeah, that's I'll kind of give you a clue of what we do at Tribe for Leaders, and that's a really amazing group. If what we talked about here today resonates with you, and you kind of self describe as the kind of entrepreneur that we're talking about, then yeah, go ahead and check it out.
Definitely. So I recommend, if it's something that you're resonating with, and obviously I can't imagine anybody isn't engaged with who you are as a person, just go follow them. And at the minimum, check out that video and see what you can learn. Because if you're a giver, it is a tough thing to learn how to receive with grace. And not try to make excuses and reasons why it's so easy to deflect that. So I'm looking forward to checking that video out myself.
Awesome.
So we'll get all those links in the show notes so that you guys can connect in with Kevin. And Kevin, I really appreciate your time and your attention to this whole perspective, because it's important, guys. It's more important now than it has ever been, in my opinion, to really rely on relationships. When you look out in the public sphere and relationships are being degraded and eroded at record speed and record pace, it's really important that those of us who care about other people enough to stand up and even stand in the face of that adversity so that other people know they've got a safe place to run. It's really important. Even if all you're going to do is support them and encourage them, let people know that they can come and get rest under the shade of the trees that you provide, and make that happen. And, and this is the best way I know to do it. So Kevin, I really appreciate you. Thank you. Any last thought to share with everybody?
Thank you, Jim. Thank you. It was a great conversation, and it was a pleasure being here.
All right, guys, stay tuned. We got a whole lot more coming for you on the Make More Sales podcast. Just remember, they can't make a difference if you can't make a difference for them if they don't find you. Make sure you show up, be seen, be heard, and be the person who's in control of your own destiny by being able to master the sales conversation at will. All right. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks for allowing us to be part of your success team.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Make More Sales podcast. If you like what you're hearing, you'll definitely want to check out our Make More Sales Facebook group, where you'll find more amazing content, including free sales training and live content happening every single week. So make sure to follow the link below to join. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the show, and share it with your friends. That way, more people can learn how to make more sales without getting better at selling. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.